this video, I'm going to be doing a review of this little guy. My name is Murray, and you're watching 3Bardy Videos. So this right here is the Kel-Tec SUB 2000 Generation 2 model. It is a semi-automatic pistol caliber carbine chambered in 9mm. Currently, at the time of this video, this rifle right now in Canada has a non-restricted status, and I believe that's mainly due to two main factors. One of which being is this gun does meet Canada's overall length requirements, and then it also is a semi-automatic firearm only, so there never has been, as far as I'm aware, a fully automatic version of this firearm produced. So it very much is a civilian-based firearm from the ground up. So I actually don't own this firearm. I'm borrowing it for this review from a friend of mine named ELPHNT 202. He bought this firearm around 3 years ago from a company based out of Ontario called Bullseye London, and I believe he paid right around $700 Canadian for it at the time. At the time of this review, I believe this rifle has right around 500 rounds through it. So as far as variations go, I believe Kel-Tec only offers this firearm in two different calibers, one of which 40 Smith & Wesson, and then the other, which is most common, the 9mm version, which this is. And they also offer this firearm in different magwell configurations, one being a version that takes Beretta 92 and 96 mags, another that takes Smith & Wesson mags, and another version that takes Sig Sauer P226 mags, I believe. And then finally, the most common version, which this is, a version that takes your most common Glock mags. They also offer this gun in numerous different colors, as you can tell. This one here is the black version, which is also, once again, the most common version, I believe. I have seen a few of them on the shelves that come in camouflage, and I know there's also a limited production run of these that did come in bright red as a limited edition Canadian version. And the bright red kind of symbolized the color of the Canadian flag. And then finally, I've also heard rumors of them producing a deep purple version of this rifle that's kind of targeted towards the female audience that'd be shooting this rifle. So now I'm going to go over the basic functionality of the SUB 2000. This gun is an extremely simple firearm, and it's very easy to understand. Basically, the action cycles not by gas piston or by direct impingement, gas impingement. It's simply a direct blowback design. So that means that the recoil of the round going off basically sends the bolt flying to the rear, like so. And that's how it cycles a new round from the magazine, in layman's terms. So as far as functionality goes, a few important pointers to note is because the magwell is located in the pistol grip of the firearm, the mag release on this firearm is actually very conveniently placed on the left side of the pistol grip, just like a lot of handguns. So you can just press it and then remove the mag and insert a new one, and it clicks into place, of course. The safety is located at the rear of the receiver in kind of an awkward place, and it's just a cross bolt safety, so you just push it back and forth from safe to unsafe. The charging handle of the firearm is located on the bottom of the buffer tube here, and it is reciprocating. So this gun does not have a last round bolt hold open. So that means it's just like your standard AK rifles and stuff, where it'll just keep firing until all of a sudden you hear a click, and that will mean that the bolt is closed on an empty mag. So to lock the bolt to the rear, you just have to manually pull it all the way to the rear of the firearm and then slip it over into this cutout made in the buffer tube, and that acts as a manual bolt hold open. And then of course, to drop the bolt, you just simply knock it out of that groove and it'll come flying forward. So that's the functionality of the very simple SUB 2000 in a nutshell. So now I'll go over some of the features on this firearm. Because this is a non-restricted model, it does have an 18.5 inch barrel that has a pencil profile. The muzzle comes threaded from the factory, surprisingly, with a 1/2 by 28 pitch thread, and it also includes a thread protector. The gun has a ghost ring sight setup with a fixed rear post that's made entirely out of polymer, and then a front sight that is located at the muzzle that is completely made out of metal and is fully adjustable for both windage and elevation. The gun also has a long checkered forend that has 5 M-LOK slots on both sides and a 1913 rail on the top and bottom. The gun also has a checkered pistol grip that has a mag release located on the left side, just like many common handguns. The gun also has a crossbolt safety that's located at the rear of the receiver in kind of an awkward position. The gun has an ambidextrous reciprocating charging handle on the buffer tube that has a manual bolt hold open slot located at the rear of the buffer tube. The gun has 3 adjustable lengths of pull, and that is adjusted by driving out the pin at the back of the buttstock and sliding the buttstock into one of the 3 different locations and driving the pin back in place. The buttstock has a sling slot located on it that's about 1 3/4 inch length. And if that doesn't work for you, they did include a little tiny 1913 rail section at the bottom of the buttstock that allows you to attach different sling adapters to the buttstock. And finally, the most noteworthy feature of the gun is that it folds into a small package with relative ease and in seconds. The gun has an overall length of roughly 31.5 inches. And the gun, the way you see it right now, with an empty mag inserted, weighs right around 4.86 pounds. And the trigger pull measures at right around 7 pounds. So as far as build quality goes on the Sub 2000 Gen 2, it's very Kel-Tec-like. So what I mean by that is basically the build quality that you get out of the box isn't really justified by the price that you paid. Given that these guns are going for a price tag of around $700 to $800 Canadian right now here in Canada, new, what you're getting out of the box is basically a polymer firearm. The forends and the receivers and the pistol grips on these guns are polymer, and the gun just doesn't really have, although the build quality is decent on them, it doesn't really have an $800 feel for it, or feel to it. Now, with that being said, they are a step above the Gen 1s, because I remember when the Gen 1s first came into this country, they were made mostly out of polymer as well, just like the Gen 2s, but the polymer was designed and built extremely flimsy. And even the front sight on the Gen 1s was made entirely out of polymer. And but yet the Gen 2 seems to rectify all those issues. The front sight is now made 100% of metal, and the furniture on the forend and the pistol grip and receiver feel a lot more robust. There's no flimsiness to them, and they're quite sturdy and seem like pretty decent quality as far as polymer guns go. So as far as durability is concerned, so far the rifle's held up quite good. Nothing's broke on it in the 3 years that ELPHNT's owned it, and even during that period we've done a lot of shooting in significant sub-zero temperatures with it. And although we didn't beat it around that much, we took pretty good care of it. Yeah, it's held up great. Reliability has also been really good on this firearm. There was a little bit of a bumpy start when ELPHNT first purchased it. He did make the mistake of purchasing a bunch of Blazer aluminum cased ammo, and like many pistol caliber carbines out there, this gun did not like that stuff. It did have a lot of cycling issues with it. But once we made the switch back over to brass cased ammo, this gun's reliability has been 100%. I don't believe I've witnessed it have a single stovepipe or failure to eject with any of that brass cased ammo, and that's including bullet weights of 115 grains and 124 grain. As far as magazines go, the gun seems to function 100% with pretty much all the reputable Glock brand and Glock-like magazines out there. However, we have noticed that quite a few of the mags, including even some of the genuine Glock mags, don't seem to drop free reliably out of this gun. Some of them do, but some of them don't. They stick a little bit. That's good. Do you have a stoppage there or no?
Yeah, stoppage.
How'd that happen? What mag?
The ETS mag. It was...
The mag pull functioned fine, eh?
Yeah.
Oh. Do I have tape on it?
Nope. Holy shit. What have you done to my sub?
I haven't done anything to it.
I'm talking about this thing. Okay, yeah.
Let me see this.
Push, you pull.
So this is with
ETS.
ETS mag.
Yeah.
Hold up though. Look what's in the mag well. Is there anything in there? So it's just sticky when it gets up in there.
Yeah.
But what other mags? None of the other mags did that, hey? What's this? Oh, that's the other ETS mag. Okay. And unfortunately, the particular brand of pistol mag that came with my JR carbine, I believe it's like ETS Tactical or something like that. It's a clear polymer mag. We noticed that one actually at the range. When you insert it in, it inserts just fine, but when you go to drop it out, it won't even. It definitely doesn't drop free, and you actually have to pull on it really hard to get it to come out of the mag well. So that particular brand of mag that came with my JR carbine seems to be really sticky in this firearm. But all in all, accuracy or reliability seems to be really good. So I took the gun out to the range and did a real brief accuracy test with it. Now one thing I will note is that all these shots were made at a distance of 50 meters and from a fully supported shooting position. So I shot these off my MTM-K zone rest. And all of them except one are going to be 3-shot groups because unfortunately nothing was sighted in on the rifle. For some reason the red dot was way out and the iron sights were also way out. So, and for this test, to keep the costs down on ammo because everything was out of whack, I only shot the 3-shot groups, and the ammunition I used was Western Munitions 124 grain full metal jacket rounds. So these are brass cased, cheaply priced, just remanufactured rounds, nothing too fancy. Now this first group you see here that's very large is a group I shot with the optic on the gun, and then for some reason, right when I thought I had it sighted in to be pretty much on at 50 meters, despite the terrible accuracy, I went to go shoot one of these small little diamonds and noticed none of the shots were on paper. So I don't know what the heck happened with the optic because the mount is still very tight. I think the optic just crapped out. I think it broke from something. So rather than screwing around with more ammunition, I just decided to use the iron sights for the rest of the test, and even that was off paper. So these 3-shot groups are me trying to slowly get tuned in to hit one of these diamonds at 50 meters. This one down here measures 0.91 inches, this one measures 2.58 inches, and this one measures 3.01 inches. And these groups were measured from the outermost bullets, center to center, with a digital caliper. So they're pretty legit. As I got her more fine-tuned, this one's 3.73 inches, this one's 2.39 inches, and this one's 1.96 inches. And this one up here, once I felt I got close enough on paper, I decided to do a 5-shot group for you folks. And this one measures 2.81 inches. So going off this test, even though these particular groups seem to range anywhere from 4 to like 6 MOA, you gotta keep in mind these were all shot with the iron sights on the rifle and utilizing extremely cheap remanufactured ammo. So I would be willing to guess that if you were to shoot the Sub 2000 with decent optic on it and find ammo that likes, like some sort of higher quality grade ammo, I'm sure the rifle is probably capable of shooting somewhere around 4 to 5 MOA, just going off of these groups. The shootability of this firearm is rather fair for what it is. It shoulders really nicely, has a comfortable length of pull settings for most shooters out there. The pistol grip is comfortable and fits most people's hands. The cheek weld provided by the irons and optics mounted to the 1913 rail up front here is just the right height. And the forend offers great grip, especially up front for those of you who like to wrap your hand completely around the forend to help control the muzzle jump even more. This rail is incredibly easy to do that with, or this forend is. The gun is also very well balanced, and it has very low recoil and muzzle jump, so it's very tame to shoot in that matter. As far as aftermarket goodies go and modifications to the gun, ELPHNT did do a modification right out of the box when he first purchased this thing. What he did is he modified the rear sight post so it can be manually flipped down like this. Normally this sight post would be connected to the folding mechanism of the rifle, so as you folded the rifle shut, this sight would automatically swing closed while you folded the gun, and of course it'd do the opposite for when you went to open the gun. He modified it to flip down simply for optics mounted on this 1913 rail up front. He found that having an optic there, the rear sight post obscured the sight picture of the optic, so he made it so it can be flipped down so you can get a better sight picture. Another thing that he added to this gun is he did add this little bit of bungee string on the buttstock here, and this is simply here to prevent the charging handle from accidentally slipping out of its manual bolt hold open position and to come flying forward and hit his hand or pinch a bore snake or anything like that that's in the chamber, because that seemed to be a problem that was coming up a lot more than you'd suspect, because it is relatively easy to bump it out of that position.
It fits in, it might not fit in a Glock bag.
That's why I have the bungee there.
So when it's locked to the rear, he just puts this little loop over the charging handle. So if it does come loose, it's not going to come flying completely forward and cause havoc. And then, as many of you can probably tell, we did add this Picatinny rail, or this M-lock rail, to the side of the forend here, and attached a Daniel Defense 45-degree offset to it. And then we mounted this Bushnell TRS red dot optic on the gun. And as far as we could tell, this optic mounting setup is fairly sturdy, but for some reason, I don't know why, but somehow I think it's the optic that's not holding zero lately, because there's no give to this mounting system. I got this idea from Nut and Fancy actually on YouTube. I noticed this was his solution to the whole optic mounting problem with this gun, which we'll touch into more on in the things I dislike about this gun. And as far as aftermarket goodies go, there's definitely anything out there that you can bolt to a 1913 rail, or the M-lock slots that are on the forend and at the very back of the gun. You also got your threaded muzzle so you can put muzzle devices on the end of this that have a 9mm bore to them. And I believe there is a few optic mounting setups out there that you can buy aftermarket for this thing. I'm not going to go into them right now in detail, because once again I'll touch on that in things I dislike. And I am not aware if there is any aftermarket buttstocks for this gun, but it wouldn't surprise me if there is out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if more came up in the future, because these guns are just so popular, especially down in the States. There definitely is a big enough market for them that I could see third-party companies coming up with more and more components you can switch on them. One other thing I forgot to mention is, for a long time, ELPHNT did have a Hogue rubber sleeve wrapped around this pistol grip to just make it fit his hand even better, I guess. He took it off for some reason. But yeah, so there's a few things you can do to these rifles. So as far as support goes for these rifles, I don't really think there's anything good I can really say about it. Yes, Kel-Tec does offer a full lifetime warranty to the original buyers of their products, but that's it. If you are not the original owner of the Kel-Tec product, that warranty does not carry over to you. So if you're looking to buy a Kel-Tec rifle like this used, that if you go to contact the warranty service for a warranty claim, there's a good chance that they'll reject you. So, And I recently had to take part, or take advantage of that lifetime warranty back in June here this year to fix a defective SU-16 Tactical, which is a gun that Kel-Tec produces. And I ended up shipping the rifle off to the warranty center here in Canada at my expense, despite it being a factory defect. And as of late December, the time of this video, I've yet to receive that rifle back. They are still pissing around with it. They haven't received the parts for it. They've had employee issues. They've given me every excuse there is, but my rifle is still yet to be resolved. And I haven't even received it back yet, so that means until I receive the rifle back, I can't even judge how good the warranty service is when you do get it successfully completed. Because I won't know until I get the rifle back whether or not they actually, in that amount of time, if they actually corrected the issue to begin with, like sent me a part that won't break again. So yeah, support I would say is pretty spotty when it comes to this type of thing. So now I'll go over a basic disassembly of the Sub 2000. It's relatively easy. The first thing I want to do, of course, is make sure that your firearm is safe. There's no live ammunition in it. Once you've done that, go ahead and take out the magazine. And then what I always like to do is cock the action all the way to the rear. That way you have the hammer cocked back, so that makes the bolt easier to come out. And then the next step will be to drive out the pin that's located in the rear of the buttstock here. So I found to remove that rear pin, the easiest thing to do is to stand the rifle up, barrel first into like something soft, of course, that's not going to damage your crown. And you're going to want something pokey to drive out this pin. I'm using an 1/8 inch punch right here for this task. And what you're going to want to do is push out this pin while letting the pressure off of it by pushing down this back little plunger thing, the piece that holds the latch for the folding mechanism. So I'm going to push it down a bit, and then I'm just going to pop it right out. Now that you've done that, the piece can be removed. Thankfully, there isn't much pressure left on this piece when you go to take the pin out. As you can see, it didn't come springing out like some sort of magazine tube on a shotgun, so that's always nice. And then you can slide your buttstock off. So now to take out the internal components of the action, first thing you want to do is reach in the back of this tube here and pull out the spring. I believe this lets off the pressure on the charging handle here, so you'll want to make sure you hold on to that charging handle once you do that. And then you want to use the charging handle to kind of work the action to the rear of the buffer tube. Oh, it's a little stiff because it's a very snug fit in this buffer tube. Once you get to the rear, you can go ahead and pull the charging handle out and just kind of fish this bolt carrier and bolt out by hand. And there you go. You can see here's the component. This is the mass that basically helps the action cycle as a direct blowback system. And then here's your bolt head with your extractor and whatnot. And that's it. To get at the barrel on your firearm, all you have to do is fold the gun. So we're going to fold it around like this, and there you go. You can see right here is your chamber posed in a really easy to get to position to clean it. Now to put the rifle back together, you want to fold her back up, or fold her back open. And first thing you want to do, of course, is put your bolt group back together. And you want to put it in so the top part of this bolt is facing with the top of the rifle. This rifle is very dirty. It appears Laughing Man didn't clean it over his ownership of it. Okay, once you got pushed in far enough that you can see the hole for the charging handle, you can probably go ahead and shove the charging handle back in, and then push the bolt all the way to the forward position, and then shove in this pin or this spring again. If you can find the hole. There we go. Once it's fully in there, we'll want to stand the rifle back up and put in the rear components. So once again, you're going to want to stand the rifle up, barrel down. And what I found is easiest to do is first get the buttstock on there, back in the position you want to be in, and to get the pin started without the plug in the back. So grab your pin. It seems to be universal, so it doesn't matter which side you put in first. And you go ahead and shove it in until you get it started through the buffer tube. There you go. I got it in. And then once you got it started, and it's not protruding into the buffer tube, go ahead and insert this plug. Make sure you got the serrated kind of back part on the outside, like sticking out the back of the rifle. Go ahead and pop it in, and then you're going to have to put some pressure on it just a little bit until you can get the pin in place. Once the pin's in place, you can let it off, make sure everything's not going to come apart, and there you go. That should be all that's required to disassemble this thing. Now I'll just tug on its rather stiff action spring there to make sure it works. There you go. Fairly simple. So now I'll go over things I like about this firearm. I like that it has a muzzle threaded from the factory. I also like that the forend is very slim and low profile, but yet it offers lots of attachment points. I like that the mag release is located in a very ergonomic location, and that it protrudes out the side of the gun enough that it makes it really easy to manipulate with my thumb. I also like that this rifle takes your common Glock pattern magazines, which are allowed to have 10 rounds legally loaded in them here in Canada. And finally, I like that the gun is very lightweight and super compact, especially when it's folded. So now we'll go over things I dislike about this gun. One thing is it's expensive for what you get, in my opinion. Considering the price that this thing goes for here in Canada right now, literally for $100 more you can get something like the Ruger PC9. Or for a few $100s more you can start to get things like the FX9 or the Just Right Carbine or even the Beretta CX4. And all of those guns, in my opinion, are a major step above this one in terms of build quality and in a lot of cases ergonomics and performance. Another thing that I dislike about this gun is the charging handle and the fact that it reciprocates on the buffer tube here. Just the way it's sitting on this rest right now, if you were to take it to the range and fire it right now, this charging handle would travel backwards and hit this rest right here, and it would cause a malfunction. And it's even, you gotta be careful with even things like when you're holding this rifle on a table or something, you got your hand back here supporting the buttstock. If you're not careful, you can often find yourself getting smacked in the hand by this reciprocating charging handle. Ow, that hit my fingers. Or even if you're a guy with lots of facial hair, it's a concern. Or if you got gear, you're always worried that it's gonna snag on like the gear of your backpack strap or something. Or even I'd be worried if I was a female shooter and I had long hair dangling around this thing. So in my opinion, it's super annoying. Another thing that I dislike about this gun is the poor optic support that it has. If you still want to maintain the gun's ability to fold. So yes, you can mount an optic to this Picatinny rail right here on the top of this forend, but the moment you do that, you lose the gun's ability to fold and stay latched shut. Like it'll only fold so far before the optic will hit this area here. So you pretty much lose your folding ability if you do that. And the only options to get around that is either A, do what I did right here with an offset mount, which means to fire the gun you actually have to shoot it gangster style. You have to hold it on an angle, which actually ain't so bad, as it isn't as bad as it sounds. Or the other options are a few aftermarket options that cost hundreds of dollars sometimes. Another thing that I dislike about this gun is, in my opinion, and a few other people I've come across, this gun just isn't that comfortable to shoot in extended periods of time. So yeah, it's great to shoot 3 or 4 mags through it. I have no problems doing that with this thing. But when you're at the range and you plan to shoot 200 to 500 rounds of ammo in one session with this thing, it becomes a real chore, in my opinion, with the Sub 2000. And I find often, if Laughing Man brings this to the range, and I've seen it many times with new shooters, we'll have the table of pistol caliber carbines laid out, And people will pick up this first because they think it's so cool, and they'll shoot like 2 mags through it, and they'll set it down, and they'll pick up something way comfier like the JR carbine or my T&W ASR, and they'll shoot mags through it until you tell them to stop. So that just kind of goes to show that it all basically stems from the whole buffer tube and reciprocating charging handle back here, that, in my opinion, that's what makes it an uncomfortable experience. And my final complaint about the gun is that the mags do often stick in the mag well of this firearm. As you can see right now, this genuine Glock mag that I got in does not drop free. However, I guess the more proper term would be is it doesn't drop free, because it's very easy to pull out. You can see with minimal effort it does come out, but it does not drop free. And in my opinion, that's, if you're trying to, if reloading is important in the amount of time that it takes you to do it, you know, that can really throw you off if you go to drop the mag with your one hand and you're reaching down already with the other hand to get your fresh mag and the damn mag doesn't come out. You know, it totally throws off your game. So those are the things I dislike about this gun. So as for some reasons to own this gun, I could definitely see somebody buying it as a backpacker gun, or as a vehicle gun, or as a survival gun. Because of its characteristics, it would be good for all 3 of those roles, in my opinion. And I think that's very much what Kel-Tec kind of produced it for. So now I'll go over the final part of the review, and that's where I give the gun a 3-bar D score. So because the gun is non-restricted, right off the bat it'll get 30 points. For accuracy, it gets an 18 out of 20, simply because it's not quite as accurate as some of its competition for roughly the same price. Reliability wise, it gets a 20 out of 20 because so far it's been 100% reliable with all the brass cased ammo we've fed it. Durability wise, the gun also gets 20 out of 20 because out of the 3 years we've owned it, nothing has broke on it. Affordability, it would get a 20 out of 20, but at the time of this video, I do believe there is one other pistol caliber carbine out there in Canada right now that's slightly cheaper than this gun, so that bumps it to 19. The one gun that's cheaper, I believe, is the Chiappa M1 chambered in 9mm. So 19 out of 20 for affordability. Ergonomics, if the gun had ergonomics like an AR-15, it would score a 20 out of 20. But because it doesn't have a last round bolt hole open, and it doesn't have a bolt release, and it has a pretty crappy safety on it in terms of ergonomics, and also that the poor ergonomics of that reciprocating charging handle, I gave it only a 15 out of 20 for ergonomics. Handling wise, the gun would once again get 20 out of 20, but because of the obnoxious vibrations and stuff produced by that reciprocating charging handle, I gave it a slight penalty, so it only gets 19. But generally the gun is quite light, it shoulders nicely, and it points really easily, so it still scores pretty high. Support wise, I gave it only a 5 out of 10 because despite the fact that if you buy the gun new you do get a lifetime warranty with it, the service that they actually provide with that lifetime warranty seems to be pretty spotty. Like, you either will get a good experience or you'll get kind of a bad experience like me. Accessories, if it was like an AR-15, you could buy pretty much any part for it in a customized manner. I would give it a 10 out of 10, but that's not the case with this gun. But there is still a lot of things you can get for it and bolt to it and stuff, so I did give it an 8 out of 10 for accessories. Build quality, I gave it a 10 out of 10 because despite it being a plastic gun, as far as plastic guns go, it is quite well built. It seems to be pretty robust, sturdy, and it isn't flimsy, so build quality is 10 out of 10. Disassembly, I also gave it 10 out of 10 simply because to do a basic disassembly on this gun, you can achieve that by simply taking out one pin with just something pointy like a center punch. And when you fold the rifle, it gives you complete access to the chamber and barrel of the firearm for cleaning, so it's super handy in my opinion, disassembly wise. And finally, design problems. If the gun was if it didn't have any design problems, it would get a 10 out of 10. But because I've noticed some of the mags seem to stick in it, like they don't drop free, That's probably an issue with the gun's tolerances being a little too tight in the mag wells, so I gave it a 9 out of 10 because of that. So if you total all these numbers, that gives this rifle a score of 91.5%, which is a pretty darn good score as far as guns I reviewed so far goes. So that pretty much concludes my review of the Kel-Tec SUB 2000 Gen 2 model chambered in 9mm. I hope you found this review very helpful, and until next time, take care.
Bye.